Welcome back to the Brokest Guy in the Room. This is Chris Kusznir, your host. This episode is a special day. This is the Melasti holiday in Bali, which happens 3 days before the Nyepi tradition. Nyepi is, of course, the silent day, the new year. There's a prior episode on the podcast called the Nyepi Tradition, which was filmed last year when I was here and had the pleasure and honor of participating in the Nyepi tradition, where villagers spent all year building these massive floats that they parade through the streets, and the floats are depictions of the demons that their gods use to cleanse the island, as it were. And so last year, I wasn't aware of the Melasti tradition, which happens 3 days before. And this is the biggest purification ceremony that they do all year. It happens once a year, 3 days before Nyepi. The way that this happens, the people all go to their pura, which is their temple. And from there, they lead a procession to the beach. And at the beach, they perform various different ceremonial cleansings. And few people are chosen to receive the formal cleansing. And their belief is that their God will take over their body. And today I got to witness it. And it was pretty incredible. I can tell you from being there. Now, personally, I have a much higher sensitivity to spiritual and out-of-worldly energy than a lot of people do. Even my gracious hosts, they seem to be in a bit of disbelief over the things that I could feel. And they could see it. They could see it. They could see the goosebumps hitting my body, my breath leaving my body as I'm standing there on the beach, and I'm watching this depiction. And the people who are given the blessing, they perform a reenactment that is tribute to the mass suicides that ultimately led to Bali's independence. In Bali's history, when it was overtaken by the Dutch, in a manner of freeing themselves from this, one of the Balinese kings orchestrated a mass suicide. And the result of that was such a global backlash that it forced the Dutch to release the island of Bali. And so these village leaders perform these depictions where they use what's called a kris, C-R-I-S. And these are the ceremonial swords. And in most households, these have been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And so it's not uncommon for a home to have several krises in it that can be hundreds of years old. They are a symbol of pride, status. But so as I'm watching this ceremony go down, I start to feel an electricity in the air. Now, notable is that rain season here is supposed to mirror winter in the West. And it's supposed to start in November, and it's supposed to be finishing around the time of now. This year, it becomes very apparent to me that rain season is actually only beginning now. And so as I'm watching this ceremony go down, I start to feel this electricity in the air, this power that is literally sending chills through my body. I described it to my Bali brother, Bob, as though my stomach on the inside got cold, sending shivers and goosebumps like electricity throughout the rest of my body as I'm sitting there witnessing it. And he couldn't feel it, but I could feel it so overwhelmingly that it was somewhat breathtaking. And I'm watching this procession happen. And at the end of it, after the last person performs their ceremonial cleansing, the sky opened up and I experienced a thunder lightning storm like I never have in my life. Now, I had to ride home in this on my scooter, and it only took about 10 minutes for there to be probably half a meter or a foot and a half of water on the road. I drove through a river. My tires were completely engulfed in water. And as I'm doing this, lightning is shooting across the sky like as if Thor was in outrage. I mean, I just have never seen lightning like that. I have never felt thunder like that. It shook my bones. And I should back up and tell you that, years ago, I actually almost got struck by lightning. Had it hit the ground 10 feet in front of me. And so I felt the charge, I felt the power. And this was on par with that, only it was coming in rapid succession. It was incredible. This island certainly has a power. There is something here. There is some magic. There is, and I've tried to speak to this to various people, and some people are so focused on their religious restrictions that they almost view this as demonic in a way, which is remarkable to me. I've had conversations with people where I'm talking about how this island changed my life and the experiences I've had. And the moment that I start alluding to the local religious practices, I'm met with a wall goes up and say, oh, sorry, I'm Catholic or I'm Christian. I don't believe in that, and walk away in offense, as if I somehow offended them by the fact that this place touched me and changed me and continues to do so. And it makes me think about what's going on in the U.S. right now and how polarizing religion and politics have become. And it's remarkable to me that something that people believe but have such a minimal understanding of, and most certainly are required, you're required to have blind faith because you can't prove anything. And yet the belief in this is strong enough that people are willing to use it to alienate or isolate other human beings, to look at them as wrong or even evil. And I apologize in advance if I offend anybody, but the ignorance of this viewpoint is astounding to me. That we could take the words that were written by men, that were interpretations of experiences that were had with something divine, something outer worldly, and manipulated to use as control, to take this as ironclad doctrine that you are seeing as is infallible, to me is ludicrous beyond belief. Now, I stand here, I was raised a Catholic person. I was raised in the realm of Christianity. And I'm going to be real with you for a second. God never spoke to me. God never once spoke to me in my life. I never felt his presence. I never felt his comfort. I would go to church every Sunday. I would pray. I would do all of that. And I always felt like a hypocrite, like a fraud as I sat there in church. And I don't think my parents could ever really understand it. I never felt a connection. I never felt a presence. I wanted to, but it wasn't there. For whatever reason, my worship and my calls were never reciprocated. And I don't know how many people feel like this, but I can tell you when I came here was the first time that I felt the voice and the presence of something divine. In my case, it was the Hindu god Ganesha. Ganesha has resonated with me because Ganesha is the remover of obstacles. And in my life, that seems to be the function that I serve for other people, for better, worse, right, wrong, and different. It is like an involuntary spasm. Wasn't until I got older that I realized that I've been doing this for other people my whole life. That the barriers that had become end passes to them, I simply smashed down as minor obstacles. And in doing so, allowed them to see a way through and allowed them to grow and proceed through their life. And it was only years later when they come and thank me and highlight it to me that I would become aware of it. Now, being ultra aware of it, I wear it as a badge of honor, and it is something that I do with great pride. It is why I use the handle the emotional healer, because I've been able to offer healings not as a matter of business, not as a matter of income. It was something that was happening as a byproduct of my interactions with other human beings, and something that started to offer me equal and or greater healing than I was offering out to them in return, which is why it's not something I've ever taken money for, which is why this podcast has been something that has been self-funded from day one. It's been a labor of love. It's been an obligation to me to pass on the awareness of what caused the transformation that I went through, because that transformation took me from my darkest possible point to my highest possible point, from a man who was broken to the point of suicide to a man who spends every day living out his wildest dreams, from a man who couldn't find love for himself to a man who is so madly in love with himself and with life that it makes it difficult to sleep at night, because I am so excited about everything that every day has to offer. I feel so powerful that it is electric. And it's why I can't wait to interact with other human beings. It's why you could drop me in the center of a room filled with 1,000 people, and before long, those 1,000 people will feel my presence and know my name. Now, I can tell you it was in the not too distant past where dropping me in that same circumstances would have caused me to fall into an anxiety coma and recluse myself to a dark corner, where I would chastise myself in my head for not being good enough, and looking around and comparing myself to everyone else in the room and feeling inferior. How many of you listening feel like that on a daily basis? Why am I telling you this now? I'm telling you this now because this all started by embracing what was different, what I did not understand, rather than drawing a line in the sand and calling it evil. You see, that is the true problem with the world. Years ago, when I first started to defect from religion, here's why. In college, I was tasked with writing a paper, and the professor asked the question, how do you see a world at peace? What would it take to get there? And ultimately, the only conclusion that I could come to that would lead to world peace was the complete and total elimination of religion altogether. Why? Because religion has been at the center of every conflict known to man. Religion has been the reason to call somebody else different, to call somebody else evil. And I do not believe that that is divine. I think that is the vanity of man bastardizing the word of God. Call me hostile. I consider myself now a multi-spiritual individual. My personal belief is that all the gods are real. I don't think that any civilization was crazy for their worship. I don't think that any civilization made it up. I think they had interactions with the divine. And I think when they stopped believing, or when their population deceased, their divine God moved on to their respective other children on other planets and other universes. And I think when they hear the calls, when the belief is rekindled, they show up. And this is why throughout history, different gods have reigned supreme. That is my personal belief. And I apologize in advance if it offends anybody, but it is not a belief that I came to lightly or willingly, even for that matter. This was something that I came to realize from having an experience of hearing a divine voice and feeling a divine touch. Something that I never thought I would experience, something that I was certain was not possible, but it happened here in Bali. And in my case, it was the Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. I found myself in meditation in turmoil, and suddenly I felt a presence in the room, and I knew damn well I was not alone, and I don't know what became over me to speak the name Ganesha, but as soon as I did, there was a response emitted. As soon as I did, I felt every hair on my body stand up. And I asked again, is that you? Ganesha, is that you? And again, and again, and again, I received confirmation. From that day forward and that acknowledgement forward, every obstacle that I have faced in my life, I have been able to break through with ease by simply believing that I could and I would. Now, that to me does not mean that Jesus Christ did not exist and was not relevant, that Muhammad did not exist or was not relevant, that the Quran is not relevant. That does not mean that by any stretch to me. Again, I consider myself multi-spiritual, and I respect all the gods and all the religions. But I cannot help but acknowledge the one that chose to acknowledge me. What is the takeaway from all that? The takeaway for me was to never judge a human being for their beliefs. Certainly not for beliefs that I cannot confirm are right or wrong. After all of our religious beliefs, in reality, are suspicions. You could call it faith, but you have no proof. None of us have any proof. And even if we did have proof in our own, that proof does not equal proof that somebody else's is false. That is simply inaccurate, and it is a manipulation of facts that has been used to control people since the beginning of time. One of the things that I struggle with is just about every religion, there is a vanity portrayed in the divine. And I don't believe that those two things can exist together. I don't think that the divine can also be vain. At least that is what my heart and my gut tells me. So in hearing that anyone who doesn't worship a particular God is damned, that to me has to be the word of man, manipulating the word of God so that he can control other men. And I caution the belief. I caution the idea that you should look upon other people for having different beliefs and different faiths and being so arrogant as to think that your faith and your beliefs will save them from eternal damnation. Personally, the idea of that sounds so ludicrous to me and so obviously not divine that I cannot believe that for the history of humanity, this has been something that has been consumed, acknowledged, and perpetuated throughout the generations. Again, I apologize if I'm offending anyone's religious beliefs, but please know that I am not condemning them. I am not calling them false. I am acknowledging them as real as my own and simply disagreeing with the interpretation of them that I believe was an intentional manipulation by men throughout history, men with a desire to control other human beings. Being here and experiencing a culture so far from my own, a faith so far from my own, and having it touch the very fabric of my soul in a way that I have never been touched, in a way that I never could have known could be real. I never would have believed it. And again, I was raised Catholic, church every Sunday, Sunday school, the works. But God never spoke to me. Not once. Not in those moments when I needed him. Not in the moments when I was strong without him. And I'm sure there's people out there who's going to say that I'm missing the point, that, God works in mysterious ways. I understand all of that. Life is truly a mystery. And I can tell you that I come from it from the perspective of a person who believes that everything that happens to you, whether good or bad upon appearance, is a blessing. And in fact, I am certain that the greatest blessings in this life come wrapped in gift paper that spells tragedy. The greatest tragedies in my life have revealed to be the greatest blessings in my life, and I am truly a blessed human being. I am living out my wildest dreams. I spend my days lifting people up and empowering them and opening their eyes and helping them see the solutions to the problems in their life, the obstacles in their life that they view as end passes. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. There are only solutions, but some solutions are unacceptable to us. But that is on us. That does not discredit the solution. It simply highlights our unwillingness to pursue it. I have become in love with and committed to finding those solutions, because the feeling of witnessing somebody's eyes open to a path that was lost to them is so fulfilling to me that I am so grateful to have the opportunity to spend the rest of my life doing just that. And again, I will say this in the highest respect for every other faith. I believe your God is real, and I respect your faith and ideology. And I say that to all my listeners. I'm going to make that very clear. I'm going to say it again just to highlight the point. I believe that your God is real, and I respect your ideology. In return, I simply ask that you do the same. There are too many reasons on this planet to hate each other. And there are too few reasons to love each other. But the reality is, there is only one reason needed and only one reason that matters. Because you're alive. Because you're real. After all, what real valid reason is there to hate or wish ill on any other living thing on this planet? Unless it is a threat to your very existence. And I assure you, to everyone listening, that I am no threat to your existence. Without even knowing you, and in fact, even if you wish me harm, I can tell you unequivocally that I love you and that I wish the best things in the world for you. Can you say the same of your neighbor? Would you say the same of your neighbor? Can you truly say in your heart that your God would not advise you to say the same? That is a question that I will leave you with. on this special day where I was able to witness this evocation of intention of cleansing the inner body, the self, of all bad spirits, of all bad energies, and cleansing the outer body, the world, of all bad energies. I feel touched and I feel moved to spread a message of love at a time when the message of hate is screaming so much louder and is being received in such higher frequency. And so I have to beg every one of you listening to find a way to love your neighbor. Find a way to love yourself. The world, more than ever, needs love. Because in practicing the opposite, this place will become darker than any of us have experienced and any of us have ever dreamed it could be. We are made in God's image. And that can be believed across faiths. If that's the case, we have a moral obligation to act in divine fashion by spreading messages of hope and love. So please look at how you are living your life. Are you perpetuating love? Are you spreading love? Or are you perpetuating fear and loathing? Because there truly is no place for it. And I don't need to have a complete understanding of any religion to know that at the center of them all is a message of love and virtue. I no longer answer the question that came before that spurred this evolution of thought to me in the same way. No, I don't think that a world without religion is a world at peace. Now I think we would use politics for that. We would find some other way. And I think in actuality, religion perhaps is the grand solution, but it comes in an acceptance of all of us, of each other's religions. To see the beauty in them, that in the practice of any of them, at the center, truly is the worship of love. Divinity is not about hatred. It's not about wishing harm. It's not about putting down. It's not about separating or alienating. It is about coming together and lifting each other up and making this world a place we can be proud of, a place where life is daily celebration, a place where people of all faiths can come together and worship simultaneously. That is a world at peace. That is what I consider human evolution. That is what I will spread and what I will preach. And I will do so by sitting with people of all faiths, by taking the time to understand their views and to hear them, and giving them the opportunity to hear me. They will not all choose to do so, as I have already experienced. But the effort will not be lost, and perhaps the message delivered today may be heard tomorrow. And for that reason, I will keep trying with every breath that graces this beautiful body that I inhabit. I thank the stars for being so fortunate as to have an opportunity to connect with you all, to uplift you all, and to hear you. So I encourage you to please reach out. I would love to hear what you think. I'm certain that there will be a massive response in opposition to what I'm saying. And all I can hope for is an opportunity to have discussion, to be heard. The moment you stop listening and you think you know it all is the moment you define your own eternal ignorance. I promise you. Do not pretend to know the things you do not know. And certainly do not do this under the guise of blind faith. No practice could be so ignorant. So please make the commitment to not be ignorant. Make the commitment to not be a person who is dead set on condemning other people simply for having different beliefs, because it is an immoral and disgusting practice. And there is no way that any God would approve of that. To condemn someone else for living a life of fullness and virtue, but worshiping a different God, I'm sorry. I just can't believe it. I will never believe that that was the instruction of the divine. That to me was an opportunistic manipulation of the word of the divine that was used and done intentionally to corrupt the minds of men and control their actions. I will repeat a third time on closing just how much I respect and acknowledge and love and believe all faiths. I will not for a second say your God is not real, and I will not for a second agree that you are damned for not worshiping someone else's God. I simply have a hard time putting divinity and vanity in the same space. I will never be able to believe that those two things can exist in the same space. That is my belief. Of course, I could be wrong. And so could you. And in the acknowledgement of that possibility, I will simply only ever offer my opinion and have open ears to truly hear yours, and willingly look forward to the opportunity to have enlightening discussion. And all I can hope is that all of you listening can find a way in your heart to do the same. On that, I'm going to close with a couple things, a couple pieces that I've written recently. I thought I knew what pain was until it became all that I knew. When the darkness overcame me, all my nightmares became true. Suddenly, my own reflection condemned the man I had become, and I'm reminded to return to the place from which I'd come. I wish I never would have reached. I wish I never would have seen, because then I wouldn't know the pain of mourning fading dreams. I feel a fool. I am a fraud who is standing in front of crowds still waiting their applause while the boos that will ensue come through to feed my loss. Are you ready for the burn? There's so much for you to learn. You thought that you've been through it, but now it's your time to earn. Stripes are not rewarded. They are scarred. They are survived so that those who dare to wear them, bear them without compromise. So rise with all your wounds, your bruises, and your scars. You are a warrior and champion that has dared to raise the bar. You give example to the failed that they might strive to reach success. You live on to be the hope that will feed all of the rest. the survivor. No one knows what happens when I close my bedroom door. Outside of it, I'm Hercules, but behind it, I'm no more. I am required not to hurt, not to buckle, not to fall, but when no one else can see me, I've hardly the strength to crawl. Yet every morning I still rise and I put my mask back on so I can be the man that gives a man the strength to carry on. Not strong enough for me, but I'll be strong enough for them. I'll be damned if I should sleep on someone else who needs a friend. So even when I'm weak, when I'm injured, when I'm tired, I will not hesitate to be the spark that leaves someone else inspired. I will rise through every challenge to help others do the same, and I will prove to every person there's still a chance to win this game. The Motivator. Until next time, my friends, with endless love and gratitude, this is Chris Kusznir saying, be good to each other. This is the opportunity of your life. With endless love and gratitude. Namaste.